And so on and so on.
I like to designate myself as a pessimist communist. That is to say, problems we are facing are typically communist problems. But, what but? I think, and this now we come to the less popular aspects, I think that the left did not yet really fully assume the fact that 20th century is over. By this I mean that all three, not only two, formulas, how should I put it, or organizational principles of the 20th century left. On the one hand, of course, state socialism, communist Stalinist state socialism. On the other hand, it was clear soon after the Wende that it's not only that social democracy is also in a crisis. That is to say, this idea that you do modest reforms playing the multi-party game. And now comes the touchy point. I also think it's more and more clear, if you see how Porto Alegre, Seattle movement got exhausted, that also this vague idea of anti-state local self-organization, you can put it as Soviets, councils, self-managed of local communities, this is good insofar as its function, but let's be clear, this is not a universal model. Here I don't agree with Negri and Hart, who are waiting, and I think they will be waiting very long because it will never come, for this magic moment where multitudes will take over the entire field. I think here we are back to the problem that I evoked, Gramsci, il nuovo ordine. I think that we really have to start rethinking from 0 point, because this is the tragic situation. On the one hand, we need, it's clear, at the level of biogenetics, ecology, new forms of apartheid, we need not only state, even more, we need transnational, global, large-scale actions. All that Deleuzian stupidities, propagated by Negri of how molar large scale is bad, we need self-management, self-organization of local communities. This is good, but again, it's not the answer. Just think about ecological problems. Imagine the Fukushima earthquake, tsunami, and so on, just a little bit stronger. And the northern half of Japan becomes uninhabitable for 100 years. Where will the Japanese move? Who will organize this? And so on and so on. We will be getting more and more of these kind of problems. Or, for example, this is kind of a public secret, but everybody knows that those in power are not totally stupid. They knew that we already missed the boat, the moment to really fight global warming in this way of, reducing carbon monoxide, blah, blah. So they are seriously planning now. All my friends, I still have some connection in politics, are telling me this. Geoengineering is now the big word. Large-scale intervention into nature, like really influencing global atmosphere. For example, the idea is to spray water or sand into the air to deflect sun rays, or kind of unimaginable large-scale interventions. Of course, these are extremely risky. Who knows what will be, as we like to say, the collateral damage? It may be another of those stories of operation succeeded, the patient dies. That is to say, yes, they will lower carbon monoxide, but we will all disappear. What I'm saying is that it's an urgency. It's clear we will terribly need large-scale organization. At the same time, it's clear that the market doesn't work here. And again, I'm honest, I don't underestimate the market. At some level where it works, market should be used. Like if some product pollute excessively, why not include into its price? But when you have real global problems, like for Fukushima and so on, you are in a situation where you have to act quickly. You cannot say, okay, we have competition. Before competition selects the most efficient way, we may be all dead, and so on. So and this is for me the big enigma. We will terribly need large-scale mechanisms. How to do this without falling into technocratic authoritarian trap? Let's take China. There are good things now. They like to boast how, you see, with us it works. They like to boast now how precisely their authoritarian state can efficiently solve ecological problems. Up to a point, it works. For example, I was surprised. I was twice in Beijing, 5 years ago and a year ago. 5 years ago, it was horror, you know, all that dust and so on, like moonscape. Now it's much better, because simply by the order of central government, they move out heavy industry, they planted a couple of millions of trees and so on. On the other hand, do you know another of those small news that are not too much reported? Do you know that what till now was dismissed as paranoia of some critical intellectuals, now finally the government admitted it, that the Three Gorges Dam is an ecological and social catastrophe. They admitted what even I thought, maybe they exaggerate geologists a little bit, that because this big artificial lake, which is mega, 400 kilometers in length, is just above crucial cliff breaks in the subterranean structure, that if not triggering, they contributed to the strength of the Sichuan, you remember, earthquake 2-3 years ago. That is to say, you see, and again, it's not we didn't know it. No, my friends in China told me this. Geological community, large majority, was warning about this. Then, the second tragedy, the pollution of Yangtze River is so horrible because of this dam. Point 3, the most tragic, because of the dam, all the water there, now that they have a relative lack of rain, lack of water, the effect on the lower part are much worse, so they will lose horrible, like 40% of the wheat harvest, and without the dams, the costs would have been much lower, not to mention the fact that Yangtze River is the main Chinese artery for transport on boats. And now the level is so low that you cannot do. But they admitted it. You see, where was the public use of reason? You were not allowed to debate, now they are paying the price. So here I'm a pessimist. Again, this is for me communism, not dream of a future world. Communism are these problems which concerns us, commons, and we will need radical global mechanisms for large-scale action. I don't have easy answers, Tim. All I know is that, and this is my pessimism, this is my answer to liberal friends who claim, but are you aware, aren't you utopian? No. As far as it functioned, I have nothing against a good, efficient welfare state, social democratic. It's coming to an end. I think this is why, ironically, in one of my books, which will now appear in a different version with Fisher, I said the future will be socialist or communist. By socialist, I mean the bad thing, like National Socialist, either a new form of authoritarian regime or some communist invention. And this should be, I think, our appeal to liberals. If you really care about what you claim you care, real social freedom, not these obscene freedoms that any authoritarian regime can give you. The freedom to use drugs, to have sexual orgies. My God, every authoritarian regime knows to do it. Friends from Chile were telling me one of the first things Pinochet did is to liberalize drugs and pornography. Friends from Poland told me Jaruzelski coup d'etat in 80, 81, 82, all of a sudden free drugs everywhere, pornography. Not these freedoms. If this should be our message to liberals, if you really want freedom, only we, a more radical left, can provide it. Otherwise, liberalism will lose the battle with new forms of authoritarianism. This is my pessimism. Of course, I'm not a short-term catastrophic. I'm not saying year, all these 2012 projections. No, I'm just saying that something horrible will happen. The mechanisms of change are very interesting. How this was nicely described by people like Bergson and so on. How you think something cannot happen, but all of a sudden it's here, and then you say, oh, what's the fuss? It's not as bad as we thought, and so on. If we will play too long, this will be the destiny of democracy. No, you don't remember, you are too young, I remember. Still, 20, 30 years ago, there was a kind of a political consensus in Western Europe that extreme right-wing parties have no place in government. We tolerate them out of democracy. Okay, you can have these, that, Le Pen or what, but no place in government. And did you notice how slowly they are normalized? In Austria, Haider's people did get into government. In Italy, Fini, neo-fascists are in government. This is what interests me. Something appears as impossible. No, we will never allow this. And then all of a sudden it's normalized. And you don't even... Then of course people say, but they are not so bad. No, they are the same as before. We changed. We changed our standards and accepted this as normal. I claim again that this is what is happening slowly with our democracy. It's more and more becoming this aseptic cultural democracy. The big debates about... I'm not making fun of it. We should fight these battles, but they are not the key. Gay rights, abortion, all that stuff, or cultural topics. But, the real large-scale power decisions, economic and so on, even in ecology. I claim we have incredible signs of material strength of ideology, where ecology is usually falsified in the same way. Of course, states are talking about it, but it's all more or less bullshit. You remember, there was 2 years ago that Copenhagen meeting, and the result was what? They agreed that they will meet in 2 years again, and this was hailed as a success. But what are we getting instead of these big decisions? Bullshit. We are getting this lifestyle ecology. Did you throw that bottle away, or did you recycle it? Did you recycle that? This is pure ideological mechanism of making us feel guilty, but at the same time of bribing us to make us feel good. You don't have to change your lifestyle. Just buy organic apples, recycle, and you did your duty, and so on and so on. This is material power of ideology.
And so on and so on. And so on and so on. And so on and so on.